Nope. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you very much. So, yep. Number 7.
Yeah, much the same for the discretionary response. These are the applications that are 15,000 and above, and yeah, again, we have some staff here to comment on any particular application that may come up.
Okie doke. Councillor Cotter?
Look, I know the Kairos is a really, really good organisation and really worthy, and I know we've lost the other food bank, but I am questioning the amount for this, and particularly looking at the amounts the others have put in here, the matrix. So, and particularly Rata being quite low, and I thought this would be a really one that they would get behind more than they have. And you know, I'm concerned because Council does seem to be picking up a lot of the funding that others are reducing here. So if I was to move that we reduce this to, say, match the MSD, which is 75, I think, would this project still go ahead?
Yes, it would.
That'd be all right.
Yes, I think maybe the only effect that might be that the drivers, the people they employ to collect the food, it may be just slightly reduced hours, but it would still make a very significant impact on their ability to get more food in and give more food out.
So it would still go ahead, but it would reduce the amount of food.
It may do.
Some of the flow-on effect is that the smaller food banks that this food would be delivered to may come to council for funding to support that food to be delivered to them.
Right, so it'd be a wee bit pointless then. So
Yeah.
if we fund the full 90,000, which I think is a lot of money for us to put into something like this, because it's really not our fault that people are in this situation, we would expect them not to come to another fund at council.
A smaller amount, while and being judicious with the money that is left in the fund, that matching that MSD would probably still have a good impact. It may reduce, it may eliminate the need for other food banks to have to come to council for funding, and one community development advisor was approached yesterday by a new food bank wanting to apply for funding for money to pay for the food. So I think that it will make it depends on they have a waiting list. It will depend on the capacity to get that new food in. They are talking to Countdown and they are keeping talking to Rata. So I think it may not potentially eliminate, because there may be still quite a demand on Kairos with more food banks going there. But we're hoping that it may actually alleviate that issue about food banks having to pay. Okay. So it's not 100%, but I think it would have definite impact.
I see where you're coming from. I feel a bit more comfortable now.
Yeah.
And also this group has works collaboratively with quite a lot of other organisations.
Absolutely, they do. They are very collaborative and they work very closely with other food banks. The ones in North Canterbury, they work closely with the City Mission. They've got a great relationship with MSD, Rata and Countdown as well. So they're making a good impact.
Thank you. That's a really good answer.
Councillor Harrison-Hunt, please.
Kia ora. Just for the public to understand, can we please go through, and I saw the rationale, go through the reason why we declined the Loft?
Yes. So the Lofts have come to council requesting funding primarily because the MSD contract has expired, and really, as a general stance, council, we don't like to pick up dropped contracts from central government. It sets a difficult precedent, particularly with the size of these positions. Declining this grant, it wouldn't mean that the co-working space falls over where the organisations operate. It's strictly the front of house, but primarily it's so that we're not picking up the central government contract that's been dropped.
Great, thanks. And how could we or would we support in the future, potentially, to support the Loft in other ways?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think if these positions do fall away, which is looking quite likely, really the key is awareness of the entities that are existing in the Loft. So there's probably some support we could give in terms of publicity that this is a space for people to come to. They'll lose the triaging effect that they have, where people can come and be directed into the services they need. That's just a reality of it. But certainly making sure that the community know that those services are there and available would be key.
Sure. And those contractors that are working in the loft at the moment did talk about their need for agility to be able to provide those social services. Say they lose out on all of the 360, and I'm not saying that we should turn this on its head. What impact does that have on the city if the government don't front up to the 360?
It's a tough situation. It really is. Probably you have some people, and the reason that the loft is so well utilised in that space is that people can come. There's an effect where they can essentially tell their family if there's a family abuse situation. They're just going to the library. There's potentially people don't feel comfortable approaching that anymore, and you have some unresolved situations, some tensions. There may be an effect on family violence type. Unfortunately, it's a central government call in that regards.
Councillor Hunt, the Loft are recipients of the Strengthening Communities Fund, so there are other avenues for supporting specific activities. We're just averse to automatically filling in from a government withdrawal on this one. Reasonably confident that most of the services will continue.
Fantastic. Just noting that the government need to really intervene here. Cheers. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Councillor Donovan, did you have your hand up? Councillor Johansson.
Yeah, thank you. Just to kind of remind councillors, we've already got an outstanding resolution to write to the Minister, local MPs and MSD. We're just waiting for the new Minister to come into effect. So the council has passed a resolution to try and seek central government support, and maybe we want to note that. I just wanted to check with staff over the Kairos application. I'm just trying to understand, of the food banks that were supported by the Food Bank Aotearoa, how many of those groups will then be able to get support from Kairos if we approve this funding?
They'll all be able to go. There is a waiting list because it's the capacity to get the food in and to get the food out. So having some drivers and in the relationship with Countdown, they can get more food and then get more food out. So it will hopefully reduce or eliminate the waiting list.
Right. And do we have anything in the agreement that would mean that Kairos could not charge as we saw the other group do?
They will never charge. We did ask them that. Would there ever be a scenario? And they said no. It is definitely not part of their kaupapa and will never charge.
Yeah, so we fund Kairos. They make the food available to these local groups.
Yes, they do.
Who then offer it to the community.
They do. On one side of their building, literally, is the food hub, so it's money in. The food banks come up, food in, food out. On the other side, Monday and Friday, they have the free store where individuals and families can go and have a meal. They can pick up grocery items themselves. They can also have showers, and there's a place to wash and dry their clothes. Right. They have budgeting advice and financial advice. Do
we know how many, like in the application it says there's 30 food banks. Do we know how many food banks we have total in Christchurch and how many were at the other organisation?
Off the top of my head, no, because some more, like the application that came in wanting funding from council for money was a new one too, for in the Shirley Linwood area. So I'm just trying to think. I don't have that number, I can find out.
Yeah, I guess I'm just really keen to make sure that we do address the gap or the cost that's been created with the new. Yeah. What's happened with the lack of support from those other ones that are no longer able to continue. And so I just want to make sure that they can access Kairos if we give this funding.
I think it's fair to say it's a rapidly changing situation. Obviously, the Food Bank Aotearoa report a few months back, and this is addressing that need.
Yeah. So the director of Kairos Food Rescue was in Auckland last week talking to the New Zealand Food Network, which is quite a, that manages nationally that focus. So they've been up there talking to them and talking to Countdown. So that it really is something that is on the radar, top of the list to manage that food supply.
Thank you. Do we know why MSD withdrew their funding from the Loft? The reasoning for it? And I've read through it. There's no.
Yeah, sorry. I believe we do. I'd need to get back to you on that though.
Okay. And were we given a heads up with regards to that withdrawal of the MSD funding?
We've known it for a number of months.
Okay.
At this point.
And the second one, with regards to the Christchurch Resettlement Service, when with refugees, when does the government stop supporting? Yeah. Sorry, surprise.
No, it's great. This is John Slaughter, Community Development Advisor for Safety.
Yeah.
Kia ora koutou, John Slaughter. Yes, it's my first time here, so I've done this. Yeah, I've done this one. I didn't know the answer to that question, but my colleague Viviana told me, whispered in my ear, as a committee, it's 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So would resolve to write to MSD and MPs and so on and so forth. Have we already written to MSD with regards to the Loft? We haven't. Why is that? But we're also writing to MSD itself, in addition to the Minister of Social Development. Would it not be useful to be sending that anyway? In the meantime. Yeah. Well, we've already know who local MPs are. As well, I mean, I imagine there's some who. Yeah, well, if we're writing to all of the above, I'm just wondering. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else?
Josh wants to say something.
Sorry, I just have an answer for Councillor Scandrick's question about why the positions. The government withdrew 200 positions. And these were 3 of them. I believe they were put in place because of COVID, and with COVID phasing out, these positions are phasing out also.
So what was happening before? It's kind of like something's happened. A process has been put in place, and now it's going back to what was pre-COVID. And so suddenly, but there's more funding required.
There's a desire from the Loft to continue it on.
Yep.
And they're seeking support for that, but it is above pre-COVID levels.
So this requirement from the Loft, if you look at it, would be a permanent requirement for the future. So they'll be back, whether we agree or disagree to fund it, it will be back next year.
If council chose to fund these positions, it is highly likely that they would return in 12 months for funding to support these positions again.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So that's the end of questions. I've got a mover. Councillor Peters, happy to move it. Not a question, is it? Happy to move it, and I'm happy to second it. Thank you. So is any debate?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Councillor Johansson.
Just wanted to move that. Well, first, just get a noting provision that council has formally resolved to already write to MSD, local MPs, and the minister, expressing concern at the loss of funding for the Loft. But I also just wanted to move an amendment under 4 that we lie the application on the table until we've had a response.
Can you do an amendment now? I've moved and seconded it. You can, I think.
Yeah. So it's just for 4 that, So
John's got a bit of a response to that. Didn't you say that we were already funding them?
Yeah, they're funded through the Strengthening Communities Fund, If the councillor is raising that amendment, Josh might like to talk to the total amount of money available in the discretionary response fund, and if we were to hold that over, it may be that there's no money for anything else. We've run out.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not saying that we hold the money over. I was just simply meaning that we don't just decline the application now ahead of getting the response from the. We still might decline it after we get the response from the government agencies, but it was just really giving it not declining it today until we know what the response from central government has been.
Okay, so have you got a seconder for that, Yanni? Yep. Councillor Donovan?
It could be on the table for a while if they don't form a government.
Okay. So have you got your amendment floating around somewhere, Yanni? You've sent it through, have you?
I can if you want. I thought it was a relatively straightforward one, but I'm happy to type up some wording.
Okay, so do we wait round?
It's bizarre that we're putting another noting provision when we've already put that resolution through. Really what you're wanting to know is when will that letter be written, and I think that's an internal advice thing.
Well, as soon as we know who the Minister of whatever it is.
But we know who the local MPs are, and there is some urgency on this matter, so it would be good to have some on the way.
But it will be good once we know who the Minister of that is, because then I can write to them on a higher level.
But if we're writing to all of the above,
Okay. So, righto, where are we at with the amendment? Number 5. So, we've got a mover and seconder, haven't we? So, we put the amendment.
Just include it in the thing.
You happy to leave it, put it in, Mo? It's just the Loft application that's going on table. The rest of it still goes through. Am I right in saying that?
Can I ask for a point of clarification?
Yeah. And that might clarify something in my mind as well.
For Yanni's motion, does that mean that the money in the discretionary response fund will be held, which would potentially hinder others? No. Great. Okay. Cool.
So it's just putting it there for their application can sit on the table. Okay.
And
Right.
And it's just, sorry, just to be clear, under 5, it's while awaiting the response from the Ministry of Social Development and the Minister to our letter. Something.
Who wants to? All right. So, John, you have something else, David?
The information that staff would want to contribute is the application from the Loft exceeds the total amount of money available this year in the discretionary response fund. So if the council is of a view to lie that over because it wants to continue that, continue the debate, it would be very, very difficult for staff to consider other applications to this fund, knowing that this bigger application is pending. That's the drawback.
You don't need to hold the money, John.
Okay. I'm going to put this amendment separate. Okay? Right. So we've got a mover and seconder. I am putting number 5, or any debate on that, sorry, Councillor Scandrick.
Yeah, look, this isn't the first one that's come in front of us with regards to another funder walking away and technically leaving us holding the whatever you want to call it. But it's we've got to be really mindful that this won't be the last one, and we are going into a really tight long-term plan. So this is important to someone. Everything is important to someone or some group. So we've got to somehow get the message out to those other funders, whoever they may be, that we are not the last defence. We have to have a structure. Our staff are absolutely excellent at looking at this, and I want to thank them for the work we do, but I am really mindful of the hard times coming and of the widespread that we are responsible for. So please be aware of, just remember that.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison-Hunt, please.
I, for one, have visited the Loft and met many of those organisations within the Loft that provide such important social outcomes for the East, in particular around the emergency and need for social intervention. for therapy, for social work, for youth work, and actually just for Manaaki. What I cannot do, though, at this point in time, is make a decision on the lack of clarity within this, noting that John has just said that there is a risk of him having to think about putting projects aside in lieu of this. So therefore, I'd be happy to support the Loft in any other way, through the Strengthening Communities Fund, through another discretionary response fund, and also in respect of us understanding the staff rationale behind why they turned this down. If we did even think about giving them anything of around OPEX and providing jobs for this, in the matrix it did say that they are setting a precedent that could open us up for more things. And everyone around this table has always talked about precedent, and I have been quite either contrasting or alongside that. I've worked alongside that, but this here is not setting the right precedent. The government needs to step up. It's our time to hold MSD and the government to account and challenge that. And to be honest, this current government actually do like throwing money into things like this, particularly around the old whānau order fund. So I think that we're in a really good case to be asking for this around funding interventions. So therefore, I will not be in support of this motion, and I would like to continue to do the good work and see the good work that the Loft do. Kia ora.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you. I concur with Councillor Harrison-Hunt there, and I'm not convinced that this is our core business. And I think opening ourselves up for this is, I think, potentially dangerous. Totally value what the Loft do and all the organisations that are in there, and don't want to hinder them in any way. But I think as a council, we've got to be mindful, as Councillor Scandrett mentioned, we're in some pretty tight times now and going forward. So to open ourselves up for this sort of DRF application and funding would be really dangerous to do at this stage. And to tie up our DRF and not have the ability to fund other applications whilst this is still in the wind, I think would be really unfortunate for us and the other organisations in our city. So I won't be able to support that amendment.
Thank you. Look, I don't see an issue with the amendment because there's no staff recommendation here for any amount because it's a decline. Therefore, there's no obligation for staff to retain that funding in the account. And the thing is, if we decline it and a letter came back and said MSD was going to change their mind and contribute, then we would be unable to accept another application from them, because if it's declined, you can't have another one come in the same year. So this is just really leaving this open pending a response, and just in case there's a miraculously positive one, which would enable us to, or staff to, make a recommendation of a contribution which would certainly, in my view, not be the 360,000, but I'm sure that they wouldn't recommend something that high, particularly since that would exhaust the fund. And in the meantime, other funding applications can be progressed. So I don't see this as holding the money. I think it's just keeping this open, just in case there's a positive response and it can be progressed. So I'll be supporting the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Templeton.
Thanks. I'm happy to support the amendment today. While I acknowledge Councillor Peters' point about the really tight times that we're going through as a council, that residents generally are, those who are going through the tightest times are those who visit the Loft. And I'd like to see us just see if there's anything more we can do in the meantime. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Moore.
Thank you. It is correct that the government needs to step up. Worst case scenario, there may be a time where we will have to step up on this issue. They are in survival mode. They provide a critical service. To establish a service is a lot of hard work. Having it retained would be the ideal outcome. So these are exceptional circumstances. I don't see the need to make a hasty decision. We do need clarity. We should be putting this decision on hold until we know more. And no, we are not tied into any particular dollar amount, and this doesn't mean we can't consider other applications either. That is incorrect ultimately. So very happy to support.
Okay, and I've heard enough, but Councillor Johansson had his hand up, and then I've heard enough, and I'll put it. Otherwise, we'll be here all day.
Yeah, thank you. The reason for putting the amendment on the table is I do think it's unfortunate. We wanted to write pretty much straight away when we had the last discussion around the situation, but obviously with the new minister coming in, it probably makes sense to wait For me, like just to clarify a few things, many of the groups that we fund have government contracts to do work, but this council generally provides support for things that government doesn't fund. So if government are not funding this, then I think there is a valid consideration whether we should fund it for the benefits that it gives to our community. And actually the idea of working holistically to get people the support they need, I think is pretty positive, right? And there's been some research that's been sent around previously around the social impact of what the Loft do and what these positions did. And, you know, if you look at just the Kairos application, I mean, they're getting MSD funding, 75,000 per annum, and yet we're happy to contribute. Well, we'll vote on it, but most people seem pretty supportive of that one getting some support from council. So, you know, I just don't think that's really a valid argument in this case. I think it's much more sensible to wait, try and put the pressure on central government. I think central government does have a role to fund this, and we should be encouraging them to do so. But at the moment, until we get that response, we shouldn't consider the application. And as my colleague has said, there is no commitment in the amendment to take money away from the DRF to limit other groups from being able to apply and be successful.
Okay, so we've done enough. So it's been moved by Councillor Johansson, seconded by Councillor Donovan. So we are now voting for number 5 that's up there. We resolve to let it lie, the application for the Loft. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? No. And I'm Beth. We're one of Aaron's kids. Yeah, we'll just, right. All of those who are for this, just put your hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, that's enough.